Hello everybody, today we'll be looking at a very interesting game, that being SegaSonic the Hedgehog. Now, if you're wondering why is Sega from Sonic, well, if you didn't know, in the Japanese arcade scene for a while, there's like this thing called like Sonic Blast Man, I think it was something with Sonic in the title of this arcade game, and because of that, Sega's like, oh, we can't copyright Sonic in arcade games. So yeah, that's why every Sonic game that's released in arcade, at least in Japan, was called SegaSonic. So now you know. And so yeah, this game without that would have just been called Sonic the Hedgehog. So I'm actually kind of glad that it was called SegaSonic the Hedgehog. So it has something that makes it unique. Because we can't have everything be called just Sonic the Hedgehog. Have actual names. Anyway, this arcade game is pretty interesting because it's not bad. However, it is an arcade only game, if you couldn't tell. And that means that it's kind of obscure and incredibly hard to play, especially since not only is it an arcade game, it's a Japanese exclusive arcade game. Kinda. Never been re-released, so yeah, in order to play this, you have to use MAME, and I'm not a big fan of MAME because MAME is really hard to use, and actually getting this running was just a tad annoying. This one had to get running because it was just a unique game of different levels and actual gameplay that I wanted to test out, even if it's not going to be exactly accurate. There have been ways I've seen people play this on a Steam Deck, which I don't have, nor do I have access to even record that anyway. But anyway, Sega Sonic Hedgehog is a very interesting game because it's the first game to introduce the two new Sonic characters, which who would become kind of mainstays. At least they're well known. But yeah, they introduced two new characters, and as well as being a kind of elusive game. So before we talk about the game itself, let's talk about those two brand new characters. These two characters were conceptualized around 1992 based off this really old artwork that looked kind of odd. Here's some other early Sonic concept art for this character. Now, as I said in my Sonic 1 video, Mighty and the Armadillo was intended for a Sonic the Hedgehog 1 game. A lot of people think that. That's not true. There was an Armadillo character conceptualized, but it wasn't Mighty Armadillo. He was conceptualized for this game along with Ray. And apparently they were along with Vector in this artwork, which is pretty neat in that, I forget what that parakeet's called. There actually isn't that much detail on their backstory. Basically, they were designed by Manabu Konosuke for the game, and he wanted them to be similar to a hedgehog in obscurity, so they made them an armadillo and flying squirrel, respectively, and red and yellow. Tails is in the game because I guess this game was being developed before Sonic 2 was finalized, so that's probably why. And yeah, these characters were only developed for this game. Not much design. The guy designed pretty two unique designs. Flying Squirrel, other than being obscure animals, kind of weird since there is no flight mechanic in this game. In fact, the first game, Ray would actually be able to fly, despite the fact he's being a flying squirrel, was in Sonic Mania in 2017. Let's give you an example. Mighty Armadillo is obviously the more well-known character because he got a chance to be in another Sonic game during this period, that being Knuckles Chaotix. And these guys will be mostly known for appearing in the comics, especially Mighty, and then later Ray, despite the fact this game only came out in Japan, well, technically speaking. So SegaSonic was released in June to October 1993 in Japan. That's how little is very known about this game. And only released in Chicago and London in certain areas for the international releases. And from what it looks like, it's only released in an arcade in Sega World London. So very obscure. Anyway, so player 1 takes control of Sonic, player 2 can be Ray, and player 3 can be Mighty. Though, as you see here, since I can't control them, they just sit there and die, basically, because I only have controls for Sonic. So that's a shame, pal. The story's pretty basic. So Sonic, Ray, and Mighty get kidnapped by Eggman and trapped on Eggman Island, and they must escape, and yeah, just get out. So you're just there's all these booby traps and stuff, waiting for each of your guys to get killed and destroyed. So yeah, this game I think is pretty fun. The only problem I have with it is the fact that I don't know what version of the game it is because I'm missing elements from some parts when I was playing this. This is an older version, but like I said, I couldn't get a newer version to run or even find one for that matter because MAME is so annoyingly hard to manage. So I will be using other footage, but most of this footage will be mine, just to let you guys know. So yeah, we'll go for the levels, and there is no badniks to go over, so thank goodness. There is voice actors for all the characters, though, which is pretty neat. Arcade games will allow that. Genesis games, not so much. Sega CD games, yes. Sonic, I had a voice actor in Sonic CD. I didn't mention it, so yeah, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, only for certain elements. So their first level there was Volcanic Bolt, and it was super short. and most levels are, including this next level, which I don't. According to the Sonic Wiki, is even a second level. I have no idea what order it is. The reason why I'm so confused is because when I was playing, I got to this part, and all of a sudden the game just like, basically just stopped here in kind of a weird way. Like it says to be continued, even though there's an extra level. I think two extra levels I didn't even got, so I'm very confused. It always ends in that level. You know that level's not the second or third level, not even the last level of the game. But whatever, it's like a Sonic game is very, very weird. Anyway, the game's pretty basic. Using a trackball and a jump button is all you got, and it's a kind of hard game to emulate because of the trackball element. Because I was using a keyboard, and keyboard's not exactly a trackball, so that kind of sucks. So you start off having to break your bars and then getting shot up, which leads you to Volcanic Isle, wherever it is. Volcanic Valley, I think. It's a volcanic ball, I'm sorry. And it's pretty basic. Most of the game, you're just kind of running away from a bunch of different traps. And it's actually pretty great, actually. I kind of wish this was ported. One, to be easier to play. And two, because I actually think this is actually generally a good concept for a Sonic game. The game looks pretty clean and crisp. It sounds good. The music isn't like the Genesis games, but it is fun to play. As well as fun mechanics. Just watching Eggman, watching Sonic from his control panel and trying to trap him in different traps. It feels like something that makes sense for this character to do, rather than what he does in the actual games, believe it or not. At least in my opinion. There's all these death traps actually makes it feel like you actually feel the kind of adrenaline going throughout the entire game. Plus, it has a good sense of speed, so you kind of like that. So yeah, this level here is the Trap Tower, which is, according to the Sonic Wiki, is the fourth level, but I'm playing it second. And this level is full of electricity and all this other stuff that tries to stop you, including these panels, which I guess can crush you, but I never had that problem. One of the cool features about the game is that if you run off the edge, Sonic actually has some cartoon face and goes, ah, like he realizes he's about to go over the edge, so you can stop him from falling if you realize that. Like I said, it is pretty difficult to control with a keyboard. But overall, even though I am not playing in the most optical way, like I said, this is a trackball game, so actually getting an actual trackball is kind of hard. If I had a trackball mouse, it would work, but I don't have a trackball mouse. I have the newer models that don't do that. But yeah, overall, I think the gameplay is kind of fun. It's just very hard to experience because Sega decided to refuse to report this game. There was a rumor that this game was going to get ported way back in the day to the 32X. That never happened, obviously. And it's a shame because this would have been really fun to play. Another zone is Landslide Limbo, which is basically, I feel like, kind of an American desert theme, even though there's also another one that's kind of theme like this, where you're basically waiting all this land crumbling before you, getting launched in catapults, more electricity, and actually Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner wall. This level also has a boss fight here where you gotta hit it. It's kind of hard to hit based off stuff, and also I guess because the game, the emulator kind of sucks, that I actually definitely got stuck behind it, which is kind of funny. I don't think that's originally in the game, so I'm not gonna hold the game against it. This is the only boss fight in the game, or in the fact that you can die easily. It's actually not too difficult. Once again, Sonic has basically a life system where if you put coins in, so many lives he has, you can keep putting coins in to have more lives. So I guess a health bar rather than ring system. There are rings in the game, but that just fills up your health bar. It makes sense in this game. Losing rings probably would not picking them up again would not work in this style game. So I'll give it a pass. We have an ice level called Icy Isle, which, like I said, the wiki says the second level, but I played it fourth. And basically you have to dodge icicles while on an icy terrain. Of course, Sonic slides. It's not really that noticeable because of how already the unique trackball controls makes it like it just makes Sonic much more slippery. This level's pretty basic, nothing too difficult. The last level that I was able to play is Desert Dodge, where you have to dodge tornadoes and watch out for sinkholes. It is an incredibly crazy level because there's so much traps, but then again, all the levels are traps. Also, every time I came across these sinkholes, I would get stuck in them, which kind of sucks. But overall, not too terrible. The next level would be Wild Waterway, and based on this footage I got from this YouTuber, which will be linked in the description, it looks like a basic water level with a nice bridge. Of course, they're playing all three Sonic characters, it's pretty neat. They have the normal level that was described by Sonic Wiki, so I have no idea what version of MAME I'm playing. I honestly hate the fact that I couldn't play the regular game, but like I said, if you guys can find me an easier way to play SegaSonic the Hedgehog, let me know in the comment section below, because I'd like to get actually good footage. So, from here, of course, we're underwater. I don't think Sonic has a drowning here, because I don't see any water bubbles. And it's just mostly the same. Most of the game's basically the same, where you just basically watch out for traps and other stuff like that. I'm sure this would be even funner with 3 players, but yeah, like I said, it's very hard, because it's an arcade game only. Also, you guys get rated on how much rings you collect if you have multiplayer, and the characters react based on how many rings they got. Pretty neat. The next stage and final stage, if you are not a failure like me of running on MAME, is Eggman's Tower. If only I was Billy Mitchell, then I'd be able to run MAME. Of course, Eggman's Tower is just your basic level. I would say that it's dangerous, but all the levels here are dangerous. But the funny thing is, there's like an Eggman robot head trying to bite you from behind, which is pretty great if I do say so myself. Eventually, you'll come across Eggman, and he'll be like, screw you guys, I'm going to press this button. Or at least that's what I think he's saying. I don't speak Japanese or read it, so I wouldn't know. And he runs away. And the rest of the characters have to get out in the 20-second time limit, which is pretty thin, but at the same time, these guys are pretty fast, so they should be able to do it pretty easily. And once that's done, the whole tower explodes, and our three heroes in a half shell get out of there safe and sound. And that's basically all there is to say about SegaSonic the Hedgehog, and I believe since arcade game, it'll go back and forth, because that's how arcade games work. Here's what the arcade machine looked like. It was not too interesting to look at, to be honest, and from what I've seen, this is kind of what it looks like based off other images, as well as just other stuff in general. I've seen different ones, but none of them are too interesting, to be honest. And since this game is kind of rare, there's no like online listings or price, so who knows how much this thing could be worth if you want to actually own it, if you are crazy enough to do so. Because usually I'll have at the end of my Sonic videos, like, oh, here's how you play them. The only way to play this is if you find this arcade machine, which is still, I guess, at the Chicago area, based off the image there, and or even in Japan, you happen to find it. So that's not going to be easy, so the best way is to emulate, and like I said, I don't even really know how to emulate it, so hey. Actually rating SegaSonic the Hedgehog is kind of hard because I didn't really play the game. For what I played, I actually enjoyed myself, even though the game is kind of short, and I imagine with 3 buddies, which won't happen for 2 extra buddies, which really wouldn't happen with me because I'm antisocial and have communication problems. I assume this would be a blast processing, if you will. Introduce characters like Mighty and Ray, who even though don't have a lot going on in the actual game itself because they're just extra characters, they eventually will become like main Sonic characters in the comics, and you can appear in some Sonic video games way in the future. But yeah, they're fan favorites even if they don't appear that often, and they're just interesting in general just because look at these characters that have appeared in this one game. You know what I mean? Well, one of the characters appeared in another game. Ray only appeared in this one game until Sonic Mania. So yeah, I always thought Sonic was interesting, and it's kind of elusive. I just think overall what I was trying to do, I know Sonic CD is still controversial in the C tier, but before what Sonic was trying to do, it ended up succeeding, even if it wasn't that long a game and it was never re-released anywhere else. Unlike Sonic CD, which I like, but at the same time I feel like what it was trying to do, it didn't do very well, execution-wise. So sorry about that. Anyway, that's SegaSonic. I don't know which Sonic game I'm going to cover next, because 1993 has a shit ton of Sonic games, but whatever one it is, I'll see you then.